Leyland. An appeal has just been launched to tidy up the last resting place of capitalism's greatest enemy. Highgate Cemetery in North London, famous for marks and monuments, has fallen into woeful disrepair. The Victorian burial place has been neglected and vandalised to the point where £250,000 is needed to put it right, the target of the appeal just launched. Well, coincidentally, an exhibition of photographs of the cemetery opened today at the Museum of London. Wesley Kerr has been pulling back the weeds to discover some of the neglected beauties of Highgate Cemetery.
It's not hard to understand why Highgate is Britain's most famous cemetery. Although it's dilapidated and overgrown, it still retains the serenity which made it a Victorian Valhalla, the favourite burial ground for many of the eminent men and women of the last century and a half. The novelists George Eliot and John Galsworthy lie here, alongside the family of Charles Dickens. Rowland Hill, who founded the Penny Post, the painter Edwin Landseer, the scientist Michael Faraday, and the philosopher Herbert Spencer are all buried here. Karl Marx was interred exactly a century ago, and his grave has become a place of political pilgrimage. The fact that he lies here alongside thousands of the Victorian bourgeoisie who he castigated in his writings is a tribute to the cemetery's universal appeal.
It is a very wonderful, a very beautiful, a very tranquil and reposeful place.
What's the particular quality here?
I would think the sense of apartness that people feel when they come, that in fact it is spacious, it is only partly open, it is only partly accessible, but you know, we all need to get away from the bustle of life from time to time, and certainly grave owners, in my view, and people with dear ones buried in the cemetery, need to find a place where they can reflect.
What are your favourite spots in the cemetery?
I have a great affinity for our lovely Wombwell Lawn, but then everybody loves him, and he's photographed at every conceivable season with snow and with sycamore leaves and at every possible angle.
An incredible 166,000 people are buried at Highgate in 51,000 graves, and there are still a few plots available. The cemetery was opened in 1839 by the London Cemetery Company as part of a general move towards private cemeteries and away from the overcrowded city churchyards. In recent years, it's fallen into disrepair and suffered from vandalism, and thousands of the graves are now inaccessible. The East Cemetery is open to the public, but the older West Cemetery is closed on all but 4 days a year, even though it contains some remarkable monuments. Restoration is a huge job. The work's being done by young people on a variety of community schemes, partly funded by the government. When they began work on the chapels, they discovered an early hydraulic lift, which conveyed coffins under the road that separates the two parts of the cemetery. You must have terrible problems if you want to locate a particular grave.
We do. In fact, the records are quite meticulous as regards sighting of original graves. But this one, we had a request late last week from someone who was over in Britain from Canada, and they knew roughly where their relative was buried, could be located. And you can see what we have had to cut our way through just to reveal this. When we were looking up the records to find this grave, in fact, we found records of a string of foundling graves, which were taken up by the Foundling Hospital. And checking back on 1 or 2 of those, we found there were as many as 15 young children laid in each grave, and there's a patch of them through the thicket over here.
Discoveries such as the foundling graves are made almost daily as work on the 37-acre site progresses. But although the restorers want to make the beauties of the cemetery open to the public, they don't want to lose its spiritual qualities.
I don't see it as an exercise in completion. I think what is going to happen is it's an ongoing exercise, just as we can only manage the woodland areas in terms of doing a little bit here and planting a little more there, watching over this tree, felling that dangerous tree. So I think the buildings are not going to be suddenly in a prim and pristine and elegant state. I think they're going to have to be patched gently and slowly in places.
The conservationist dream of an oasis of recreation and reverence in central London can only be achieved if the appeal is successful. Without urgent restoration work, many of the monuments and graves will be irreparably damaged, and the nation will lose a part of its heritage.
Wesley Kerr reporting there from Highgate Cemetery and the efforts being made to restore it.